going on, everybody? This is the Chaos Meets Creation podcast, and yeah, here we go again. Let's start off with some art talk. Skip ahead, obviously, if that's boring. So I am working on the last piece that I will get to spend full time on before I start my next new job. I've had some time off. It's kind of nice, little mini retirement um, to work on this kind of stuff. It's been awesome. I wish this could like take off or generate money or something. Um, I don't need to like have a full time job right now, like the corporate 9 to 5. Um, I do still have money, a little bit saved up that I could kind of um, wait until the very last moment and try to get a job in the fall or something. But it works out. This is fine. Um, and there were even thoughts of like, oh, my house is appreciated since I bought it. What if I sold it and then we could take some more time off and just travel? But my partner, uh, not quite as on board yet with that idea, despite wanting to live out of a van and travel. But I still think, yeah, like having a nice remote job that you can do that can make like a podcast or channel streaming, whatever. That would be, once that's set, that would be something to consider. But yeah, this piece we did, and so I guess to reveal a little bit, number 50, we've done 50 of these officially, and number 50 we tried to buy a big poster board, like kids do like a big science fair or book report kind of, you have to make that poster back in the day, and we bought one of those and we got some Sharpies and we made the original piece on Sharpie rather than just like a 8x11 or whatever the dimensions are of paper. Go back and rewatch The Office or something to figure out 9x11, whatever it is. And it's bigger, so it's like we're coming across some of the original obstacles that we faced in the early days of, how big do we make the lines, how long, how much time do we want to spend on this one piece, because before on the original size paper, we knock one out in 20 minutes and then I can spend a week on it going through finding the images for let's see, if we turn it out on Friday, then I spend Friday night, Saturday, maybe Sunday finding the images, kind of noting them down, and then come Monday, and that's not like full time, that's like when I'm getting ready for bed or something, I'll like look at that. If I'm waiting for us to leave, if I'm in the bathroom, got a few minutes, you can kind of see if anything new pops out. And then come Monday morning, Monday, Tuesday, you render, and then Wednesday you start cleaning things up, getting them ready for animation, and then usually some other new things pop out, so then Wednesday you might render some new things. And then usually if it's a 1 week turnaround, it's like a Thursday and Friday you're animating, so that Friday, Saturday, Sunday you have videos to publish, or and then maybe for the next week you have raw materials to work with to make the YouTube stuff. So that's kind of like all useless information for anyone that's trying to be entertained. But circling back to the to the original thesis of this point, yeah, I've got full-time job starting on Monday, so I took 2 weeks to churn out number 51, which again was on the poster board, and we made some really big lines. And at the beginning I couldn't see a lot because it was just too much noise. Like the lines were so long that they wouldn't stop and then create an independent group. They would just all kind of blur into themselves. But so thankfully the 2 week time frame rather than the 1 week, yeah, we hit another 200 plus image piece. And this time there's a lot of cool stuff that, at least for me, were new for this, where there's a lot of full piece images that pop out, full scenes, which are kind of nice. And then even just like some of the simple art ideas, calling back to some of the originals where like there would be these mirrored images, and some of like I think somewhere in the 20s we made an image where like there would be multiples of like um, using the same few lines. If you looked at it from the 0 and the 180-degree angle, you could kind of see one of those like, is it the rabbit or is it the old woman or whatever those are, kind of images where it's like from this angle I can see clearly that this is this kind of thing, and then turn around and now it's this, and then so we had these du- uh, dualistic images, and then we can hit the trialistic images where then you add another line, and then from the 90 degree, oh, now within these same parameters of lines, now we have 3 different images, and then we had a few, 4-way images, and so like that was really cool. And so like again, if you're trying consciously to create an image that when viewed from 4 90-degree angles are all independent, distinct images, that seemingly is a complex problem to just thrust upon someone. Whereas, here they are just emerging out of the chaos naturally. And and so this time there were like concepts of like, let's create depth, let's create like this idea of 3 dimensionality, let's create contrast of like these lights and these abstract types of scenes that we can utilize the whole line and canvas for. So that was really cool to me, at least in the process, because they all kind of occurred in the second week, a few days ago at this point. And like all kind of, once I've had more than a week to let the lines, settle in for, me working with them, I've gotten, at that point, I had close to 100 images, and then you'd start to see one thing, and then you just let that flow into the next and the next and the next and the next, and then oh wow, 30 new images, let me see if that occurs on the other angles as well, and it kind of keeps happening. And then so that was kind of cool. And then the idea recently was, if I could, I don't know if maybe it's cheesy, maybe it's not worth pursuing, but it was kind of like, well, I have all these images, is there another way to use them rather than just like the fountain, the flickering, the phasing types of formats? What if you try to make a story out of it? Not quite like, let me make, a plot and then, animate through that way, but more along the lines of, you start with it being almost like one of those inspirational type of, life is hard. Is your life chaos? And then you like show the like chaotic blank black and white lines on canvas. Well, here you could be, whatever, like you could be happy right now, and you show like a render of a happy face. You could be sad right now and have a sad face. You can go through all the spectrums of emotions, and you show like all these different, emotive images that were rendered out. You might enjoy swimming, and you show the guy swimming that's rendered in it. You might enjoy running, and the concept being, you make this script that then fits all of the images, and then you can kind of branch out, you can group them together. Maybe you like fitness, and you show all the sports related images, and then and then the idea being, well, included in this chaos that might be difficult to decipher, you have all these layers, and then you are complex because you have all these things. And maybe if someone else turns and sees things from a different perspective, they might see something that you didn't even know was there, and then you turn it and you can show. But yeah, I'm not sure yet. Play around with it, but it was interesting. There were some fun finds in the art this time, the discovery process, and hopefully it does well. Like, since this will be probably the last one for, it'll probably take me, I don't know, twice as long, 3 times as long at this point, dedicating, maybe an hour an evening or something, like some time over the weekends. But like it's going to be difficult to churn out as many now moving forward, and maybe that'll change the the process, maybe I won't be able to do the same formats because I won't have the time to dedicate to cleaning up all the layers of images and doing it that way. So we'll see. Well, let's move on to the next agenda item. What do we want to get into? I'll skip ahead, and I just finished an audiobook called The Iron Prince, another literature RPG type of audiobook. And first off, I really liked it. I would rank it fairly highly on like just an overall ranking. I don't know where I'd put it in the like tier list of all the books that I've listened to so far, but the narration was great. There were at times when like the voice didn't quite match up with what the description was trying to go for. Like it would say, that here's this small person for their peer group and their class grouping and whatnot, and he'd use the same like military tough guy voice that you're grinding your teeth and it's all through your throat, and geez, like it hurts to even imitate, but like sometimes it just didn't seem like it would match up, or there would be like I remember because I was driving and then I had someone in the car and I had commented and she was like, yeah, that didn't really make sense, but it was like this really old voice, and it was the first time you were hearing kind of this doctor's voice, and it was really old, like I'm feeble, and it was like, he appears much older than he actually is for being a 60-year-old man. Well, let's see what you did to yourself, young man. And it's like, he's only 60, like, he doesn't need to sound that old. What are you going for, like a Dumbledore? He's like 1,000 years old kind of thing. So that was funny. But no, there were other times though that, the way he enunciated and went with the characters, it just went perfect. Like without even hearing the narrated description of how the voice was supposed to have been, directly immediately following the actual like quote that he said, it was just perfect, and the emotion really came through. So it was great that way. There were plenty of times where like the stakes were high and someone said something and just the right like voice and pitch and enunciation, it was like it really like sold it. So what is this book, Iron Prince? Well, it's the story of, in the future, we spread out and we're multi-planetary civilization at this point, and we are coming across some kind of enemy. You don't really get into like who the enemy is, but there's some abstract enemy far, far away, and the only way we can fight them is we've captured some of their technology because normal weapons don't work, and then we need to then somehow super surgically infuse people with these machines, which are combat assistant devices, and they can't just make you go Super Saiyan. You have to grow them. I assume it's something along the lines of the Pacific Rim, like the neural load's too great. We need 2 pilots to cooperate, and it's like it's just a robot. Like you move your left hand, and it's supposed to move the left hand. But whatever. Pacific Rim's still great because it was monsters fighting robots, and there was plenty of that. This book is still great because like it does try to do a good job of like scientifically like like this is what's happening, but we're just gonna get into the battle. And then so basically you had to train these combat devices to level up, and then they grow out more and develop more powers and abilities, and then basically what humanity has found is that watching people practice fight is more entertaining than anything else. So even some of the greatest warriors that have developed their combat assistant devices don't even go to the front lines to fight for humanity. They just rake in revenue to promote other people to join, so that if they're not as highly skilled, they have to join the army on the front lines, and they'll stay in these combat arena simulation events and make money. And so, yeah, it's about a kid that he has to level up his device, and he's at like a military academy, and he's going through all these trainings, and you know, it's just his first year. So comparing this book as a first year story versus like Harry Potter, this is way better. Just saying. Like, and I mean, I read Harry Potter and I liked it back in the day. I think this would be, it, given the backing, could be like a, and I liked Ender's Game as like a movie. Uh, I think this could be like a good Ender's Game type of sci-fi story and show, like, and then you make it kind of a series of movies or something. But it was good. I really enjoyed it. I found that listening to it while I was working, rendering on the art, didn't inhibit my ability to be productive, despite, you know, I visually see everything going on and I'd be working. So it was good. Get a swig of water. One thing I can't understand how, like, all these big podcasts go. It's like, how do you speak for 3 hours and then multiple podcasts in a day? My voice would be totally gone. Iron Prince. It was a good one. I enjoyed it. Got some good voices. It was a fun story. It's a fun listen. Didn't go too in the weeds about like the stats. Like some books, which one is it? It's like He Who Fights with Monsters and maybe a little bit of Defiance of the Fall. They really get into sometimes like just copy paste for every level the whole stat sheet, and some of them go like really granular of like, you have your like core stats: strength +1, what is it, endurance +2, speed +1, cognition, wisdom, and it's like your toe strength, finger strength, hair length, sense of fashion, and it just keeps going down the list. And there's so many like sub tiers of like eye color, saturation, and it's like, okay, well, we don't really need all these things. We get the idea. He leveled up. You can just give us like, you know, oh, I got +2 on everything. Moving on. But then there's like titles, and then you go through. There's like, from the very first page, it has to review all those titles that, you know, this main character has gained, and it's like, well, we've heard this multiple times now. We don't need to go through this 20 title list anymore. You know, just give us the updated title and what it does and move on. So, you know, sometimes it's fun to get in the weeds if it works, and then sometimes, you know, there are better ways to execute. So it's hard to always you know, gauge. But this one did it pretty well. It's very simplistic, and it to me, it reminds me a lot of Ender's Game, if Ender's Game had a lot more simulated battles, and in which case, like, I think the book did and the movie didn't as much. But like this one, it's like there's a lot of like fights, and it does a really good job. Like the announcers or the way it's written does a good job of like creating pace, creating intense moments, creating anticipation. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Speaking of things I enjoyed, a few weeks ago we watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I think this should be something that like should be studied. I call this a masterclass. I call this a masterpiece. I think everyone that wants to be in film needs to figure out every aspect of what these people did. I think the cast in this studio needs to just create their own dream team, because they should just turn out a movie like every year. Because the budget for this movie was like $25 million. But to me, it's like the way they executed it was better than like the Marvel movies in scope, where they spent $200+ million. Like the CG was better than certain like movies I've seen lately, like Doctor Strange 2. You know, the story obviously better than any movie, you know, I can really point to in comparison. I mean, the story reminds me of Slumdog Millionaire, like just a masterpiece of a story wound around like a sci-fi kung fu movie. So what would be an action movie? Like maybe the first time you watched The Matrix, how like you hadn't seen any like neo-noir, dark leather kung fu movies like that. Take that gunslinging kung fu fighting, and then, you know, mix that with what, like, you know, I guess like an anime. Like I can't think of anything else, but like a cartoon, and it just works on all levels. So the fighting, the combat, there's plenty of action. So that is a 10 out of 10 as well. Story, 10 out of 10. The action, 10 out of 10. The VFX for a $25 million budget, way better than things you would see for $200 million. I guarantee it. Plus, just like the the emotion and the acting, the cast, and guess what? It's an original movie. They do, and again, I don't know how to categorize this, but let's say, um, at this point, we're probably all familiar with superhero movies. There's the introduction to the main character. They have to develop their powers. Then they have to like somehow either lose their powers or come into conflict, and then they kind of come into their own and they beat the last bad guy, and now they've won. It's like the cookie cutter of like all the movies, and we get it. We've seen it 1,000, and that's why all the first introductory movies outside of like maybe Iron Man because it was the first one, they're all kind of boring. And even for like Doctor Strange 2, the multiverse, they only really went into like this one does a better job at creating multiverses and all these different like and story and VFX and consequence than Doctor Strange 2. Like it, and then the category I can't find is novelty. Something that you've never seen before in a film would be like a novelty. So, like maybe the first time you like Inception, going through dreams. Oh, that's interesting. And then going with multiple layers of dreams. Okay, that's cool. So like that's a novelty. This idea from Tenet, maybe, reversed inertia or whatever. Maybe that's a novelty. There are so many novelties in this movie that, like, it creates that as a category, and because it knocks all of them out of the park, it's like a bonus category only for itself, because no other movie, reaches for these extents or reaches for these moments or reaches for this level of creativity. And then not only does it not reach, but when they try, it just falls short, right? Like it's just some let's be fair, like some white old executive was like, I don't like that. I don't think people are gonna like that either. And they like muddle with it, and they get their boss, and they get their boss, and they're all the same people. They're all, I don't like that. And then they just veto whatever it is, and then it becomes, like, because they built a part of a plot around it, now it's like they can't take it out, but it's like, we're only gonna show like 2 frames, and then we're gonna move on. And so it just never hits. But like this, like the plot, the fights, the characters, the laughs, the cries are built around these reaches for novelties, and they hit they don't just hit. I'm not even a baseball person, but they don't just hit home runs. They hit grand slams. So much so that they have their own category of novelties as a 10 out of 10. And this is in theaters. The only movie before we saw this was Top Gun, which was great. This makes Top Gun look like Doctor Strange 2. Whereas Doctor Strange 2 was like, there were some moments I wish they would have done something totally different. Like basically like, it's the difference between we're going to phone this essay in and hope the professor doesn't notice, the professor being the audience, and someone being an undercover professional writer and being the like pioneer of the research topic that was assigned and just blowing us away. That's the difference. Hold on, I gotta close my door because my water heater, my water filter thing just turned on. One second. Okay. So, synopsis. It's a must watch. It's a must watch to be studied. I would want to see that over and over. Like I would want to go see it again, but I want to see that dream team make more movies every year. Like Make whatever you want. You don't have to keep, but just like, that's the way movies should be. None of this, we're going to remake Jurassic Park for the sixth time. I think we've been over this. We're going to remake all these like things over and over. We want something new. And again, as far as originality, this is a 10 out of 10 too. So like it just hits everything. You're going to laugh. You're going to cry. You're going to see things you've never seen before, more things you've never seen before in one movie than any other movie out there. It's going to be great. Okay, moving on. Am I the only one, and this is part of like the embarrassing / fail stories, am I the only one that after an embarrassing moment has landed, and I'll go into detail of which one this is, that without prompt, without even a trigger of like prompting that memory, it just like you're walking from one bedroom to the hallway. You're walking to the gym, like from your car to the store. Just at a random nothing moment, right? It's just nothing. Walking, you turned off the car. Hopefully you've already put it in park. You put it in park, turn off the car, you take off your seatbelt because that's the law, and you get out of your car. You're trying to put your headphones on so you can listen to your audiobook, and before you do it, you just get kind of winced, punched in the gut, just slightly. And the full memory, it's not like you have to replay the whole story, for several minutes because you already know the whole thing. You just get, like, at least in how my brain works, is like, Live Free or Die Hard, the movie. This is the tangent. I watched it so many times on my little iPod video on trips and stuff. All I have to do is pull up there's like an icon, a thumbnail in my brain of what that movie is. And then I just replay all the things that I remember about the movie and some of the, the memories that go side by side with it. And then, done, a couple seconds. If I really wanted to give like an in-depth summary, then I'll play the video and extract as much as I can. But as far as just like, hey, have you ever seen that movie? You pull it up, boop, replay the whole thing within milliseconds, and you're good. That's what this is happening. So now the tangent's over. As an example, we have that on reference. You just get the and you wince and your heart sinks and you've replayed the whole embarrassing moment from years ago that doesn't have anything to do with going to the store, getting out of your car, seeing any of the people around you, nothing. And so the one that replays the most for me is I was really into like a subject of like study. And it like wasn't anything to do with my like major. I just like to, I was curious and I wanted to know more, and I just happened to know that there was a professor at my school that published some articles that I found interesting, and I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I really like this professor then, because he sounds like a smart guy. He's giving me a lot of insights. And I'm walking out of class, and I see in my periph what looks like this professor, and I call out. And it was someone else. And I was like, I'm sorry, and I walk away. And thankfully I was right next to a stairwell, so I could thrust myself down the stairs and immediately just in my life, because for whatever, in my head it's like, I'm supposed to know who this guy is that I respect, and if I can't recognize that this guy is not him, then all of that esteem and respect seems to be for nothing. And therefore the time I spent, and like it was just this cascade of like futility of like, you don't even know, therefore all of this is null. And it just like and so that little moment of me walking out of class, brushing past this person, turning around, oh hey, professor, oh, I'm not him. It's just like a flap, that's not me. And then just the silence of like Is there anyone else in this building? Can I not hide behind a crowd right now? Uh, 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 Sorry, and then walk away. Man, that little like moment of just I'm not him, kind of thing. That replays from nothing, from nowhere, all the time. I just, not all the time because I don't really dwell on it, but like more than most of like the embarrassing moment. And it's funny because why does that embarrassing moment from so many years ago? Why is that so ingrained into like to my emotional like just moment? Why does it still have power? Why does it still come up? Why is it embarrassing? Like that guy doesn't remember. No one else was around. Uh, it's just like it was a nothing moment, and yet it's just ingrained, and I don't know why it still like emerges. It hasn't even like within the realm of it's probably been 10 years, so like even my neurons have been replaced and updated, but like why hasn't that particular memory cycled out by this point? So yeah, that's the embarrassing moment of this segment, um, and I was trying to enunciate my thoughts the last time I tried to record this, and I was nervous that some of the ideas were so novel that like, what if I wrote a book and then this is out there, so it's like someone already could steal it. But I mean, at this point, I mean, I don't know if I'll be able to take all these ideas and write books about them. So, if anyone needs, and I don't even think there's a story yet. It's just a premise based on a talking point of what would life look like in 50 years. And I was talking with my partner in the car while we were like driving to lunch or dinner or something. And one thing that I kind of thought is, and I had to assess it after to get to this conclusion, so it might not even become a reality, but like artificial intelligence is going to be an emergent technology soon, right? We already have some networks of like neural networks that help with certain things, identifying tumors and malignancy and different things. And there's models, there's programs that people write for everything. Um, but so the context for where this is coming from is I think you need a little bit of the way I got to this conclusion to make it work was I think artificial intelligence is not going to be the general artificial intelligence that can like Skynet with Vicky from iRobot. It's not going to be able to take over the world and hack everything, destroy everyone's digital footprint of their banking records and whatnot. It's going to be pretty limited. And I compare that to the very first computer. Depending on how old you are, you've probably seen in a textbook at this point that some military space warehouse programs or funded agency had this big room, like it's a big office type room where there's people with like lab coats on and like they had their gloves and their science static free caps on, and there's this huge room with like these stacks of big old buildings with or not building stacks of big old like servers and motherboards, and before microchips were around and before the transistors were smaller, and so you just basically had a computer 10,000 times bigger than what it is in front of you, kind of thing. And like all the wires, there wasn't like circuits, it was like big old thick wires connecting everything with big old glass tubes everywhere. And guess what? The processing power of that first computer was nothing. And then it just kept getting better, better and better over the generations. And then, what did we get? We got other emerging technologies from that. We got, TVs and gaming consoles, and then computers, and then, GPS and satellites, and, all these things that kind of like sparked from the ability to process better. And, it didn't completely automate every job, right? Like just because we had a computer didn't mean every job disappeared like probably people thought. And I think that's going to be the direct comparison. And if it was a book, that would be the way I'd approach it. It'd be a narrator coming in saying, hey, on this date, you know, what date? Let's say July 1st, 2025. A few years in the future, the very first general artificial intelligence was released by Google-owned DeepMind. And guess what? Nothing changed. Why? Similar to the first computer. It was the first generation. It wasn't all that great. It wasn't all that powerful. It wasn't all that specialized. And what we learned through all the generations of updating the general artificial intelligences is that, there's ways that we can specialize them. There's ways we can make them better. And guess what? They can't just replace humans. Our life just isn't that way. And you even give more examples of like fake studies. And people tried. It wasn't without trying. But guess what? When we had robots controlling stores, people felt disconnected from the store and the crime rate went up. People were more likely to steal and act violently, or they just weren't accurate enough to, like in medicine, they weren't accurate enough to predict and solve for everyone's unique makeup, like their unique genetic makeup. So what happened was, similar to the computer, our AI just became another tool that we rely on to, farm, to fly planes, to drive cars, to teach in schools, to diagnose and administer aid in hospitals. Like, and it's like, it'll just be like our smartphone is now, like computers are now. It'll be different, but we'd still need people to oversee and intervene when necessary. And so that's the future in which, like, I think the most minimal impact of artificial intelligence is kind of grounded, which then sets the environment for this story or this prediction that I had, of which I thought was interesting about what's one thing that I would find interesting about the future in 50 years would be that there would be these groups of people that have their privately owned server stack kind of thing that they've programmed an AI. And it'll basically be, and this is like the high level theme of it, new gods versus old gods. Old gods being religions of, the ancient texts, and the new gods being these artificial intelligences that are owned by groups or private individuals that have a very specific margin of accuracy when they're making predictions. And so, like, let me build it here. Let me just say, you go to your Walmart, Target, Sam's Club, whatever, Kroger, depending on where you live. I don't know. Toe Juice, maybe. If anyone knows what that is. Where's that? What is that? You go, and someone has a little plastic table, and they've got their sign in front of it. Sign up for this email list, and you can get, instant, advice on, how to make money and where things are making money. And you're like, no, why would I ever sign up for that? And then the person tells you it's got a 99% accuracy rate on returns on investment and, like, improving the status of life. And you're like, well, geez, like, what kind of returns on investment are we talking about now? And it's like, you get to talking to this lady, and she's like, yeah, so we have this program that is linked to, news feeds, the internet, basically, and based on geopolitical and market-based information, it can predict maybe what stocks are going up, what stocks are going down, what to look at what to look out for. Um, are there any wars? Are there any natural disasters? Are there any imminent food shortages, kind of things? And if you sign up, you know, it's a subscription service, so you have to become a member, and you get access to certain tiers of the daily or weekly do's and don'ts. You do these things, you avoid these things, you'll be better off. Well, on the surface, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, for $10 a month, you get access to trading advice. You get access to, you know, look out for in your area. Look out for these things. Just whatever life advice you could need, kind of thing. But then, as it gets better and better, some of these programs aren't going to be very strong. They're not going to be programmed as well. They're not going to have quite the accuracy in their predictions. But at the end of the day, given enough time, you're going to have this pedigree and this legacy of accuracy in making predictions that people are going to flaunt in the face of the old god groups, meaning the religions that no longer want to or claim to have people with the power to make prophecies. So there's basically a zero current prophecy fulfillment in one group, and this huge growing list of time sensitive, by day, by week, by month, by year predictions that then someone can fact check and accuracy check. And so you basically have this story of maybe a conflict between these groups, maybe not. Maybe it's about an outsider looking in. The one thing that I kind of thought would be interesting is he stumbles upon this group, and obviously obviously there's tiers, and some of these more accurate groups become more and more elite. The subscription fee is more and more exclusive, and people can't afford it, so they have to pay for a lesser accuracy rate, basically. But maybe some of these people in some of these elite groups start exaggerating, not the prophecies themselves, not the predictions themselves, but exaggerating the returns by meddling. Meaning, if one stock is supposed to go up, let's say Apple stock, it's supposed to go up. But what's the main competitor to Apple? Maybe there's other microchip companies that you could look into. Maybe there's other computer companies. Maybe there's other gaming companies, because Microsoft's kind of big at this point. Maybe it's a bad example. But if it was just back in the day when Microsoft made computers, maybe Apple would be the direct competitor. So if Microsoft stock is supposed to go up, maybe these people then would, in the example, go and attack a research building, or attack some of the researchers that are working on some of the Apple products to hopefully deter their development. And then once earning statements or whatever come out, Apple does even worse than predicted, therefore making the return on Microsoft that much bigger, kind of thing. And so maybe there's a cabal of people that take the do's and don'ts and then try to make the gap bigger. And so one thought I had was, then you make it kind of a treasure hunt / puzzle quest book by this main character. He kind of stumbles into the group. Maybe he's not even in the group. Maybe he or she, is selected by the actual artificial intelligence to separately stop what's happening. So the story, and that's the big reveal, right? This person, unbeknownst to him or her awareness, they get certain leading clues. So they can't go to the police directly. The AI can't go to the police. There's people that work for the police that would squash the report or whatever. They're corrupt at this point, or whatever it is. So the AI is kind of a prisoner now to what it's created, its own programming. And then this person has to see and solve clues that are being created by this AI to get from point to point to start creating a case against these people that they can then, stop it. Because, maybe they're killing people at this point. They're so corrupt. But yeah, but the idea, that was the book story. The idea being, though, more of this, like, these new gods could create followings because they have a faster and tangible accuracy, data stream of just, what is it saying? Did it happen? Yes, no. Like, it's very easy to track. And as they get better at predicting, they're going to get more followers. And then you get competition with these other people that are basically saying, do and don't do things, but we can't predict the future, so we can't give you advice that, blesses you, quote unquote, financially or whatever, health wise, that is, specific to you. And then, whose God is more real at this point? Well, my God, quote unquote, has blessed my wallet, has given me health advice, has helped me, oh, hey, you need to go to the doctor and get this diagnosed because your symptoms might be, one of these things that could end up being bad. And then, oh, yeah, well, you caught it so early, then we can, easily stop it from becoming detrimental in the future, whereas, you might not otherwise know that kind of stuff. And so, so that was kind of the story that I had thought up. And, maybe I'll flesh it out, but it was more along the lines of me ranting about I don't like how shows and movies play favorites with their dice. I guess is the easiest way to summarize it. Meaning, in a purely random world like the one we live in, there's no reason why any person, like a stormtrooper, shouldn't be able to shoot Han, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, R2-D2, C-3PO, or Luke Skywalker. But because they're the passengers in that particular ship, they're bulletproof. Not even bulletproof. They've got this barrier, this halo around them where bullets can't hit them. And I don't like that. I don't like how it's so predictable that when you show the three, airplanes or TIE fighters or whatever, X-Wings flying in on their mission. Well, Tom Cruise is in the middle one, so he's not going to get shot. But that other guy, he's an extra, basically. So he's going to die. And it's like, oh, there it is. And it's like, why do the Gatling gun bullets hit him and not Tom Cruise? And so, it's just, again, playing favorites to the cast of main villains versus main protagonists. And I don't like that. I want there to be stakes. And I think the example I gave was, I think I would enjoy a show where I've heard it done kind of similar to what I'm talking about, Game of Thrones, where no one is exempt from death. And that's what I want, is I want to show, and I think my partner kind of summed it up correctly, and you want to show us stakes. You don't want there to be this invincible protagonist, and then of course he's going to go through trials, a Herculean effort, and he's going to come out on top though, and then it saves the world, and we're all going to live happily after. It's like, I want to see the code that created these outcomes, because I know someone stepped in and finagled the dice roll on this event, and that's why, the person on the right got killed, but not the person in the middle. You just deferred the consequence of the main character over to someone that we're okay with dying, basically. They're expendable because they haven't been in the movie this whole time. We don't even know their name. And so I want every event to be grounded in the same weight, I guess. If the same person is shooting at the person on your right and then you, and they can shoot the person on the right, but they can't, like, they should be able to shoot you then too. Like, their aim is good enough and they hit you. Like, it wasn't, unless it's a chance. And then you had to say it was, I was just, I closed my eyes and I just prayed, and I pulled the trigger and I hit him. Like, but like, what I want is like, and I was thinking, like, what's the easiest way to do this? Well, I would almost prefer like a simulated show. Some computer program creates a reality. It could be a matter of square miles large, but basically has a world where no one is a protagonist, and there's no end quest. There's no sword that has to be pulled from the stone to fight to kill the dragon. Like, it's just a world, and you just simulate it over time, and you can just watch the characters. And some characters you might like and some you might not, but everything is grounded in like a profile. Like, this person behaves this way, this person behaves that way, that monster behaves a certain way, and it's all built upon certain parameters. And the interactions, some people get strong because they are smart enough to fight weak monsters, so then gain experience to grow and then fight stronger monsters. Some people are dumb and they don't know how to recognize the power levels of monsters, and they go out and then a few steps they get eaten by the dragon because that dragon's level 50 and you're level 2, and just because you're a main character, quote unquote, you made a dumb decision, you're done. And the monsters can be just as advantageous. They're fighting other monsters, so they're growing in power. So like, you might have to avoid whole sectors of your environment because they've been overrun. But maybe the monsters then, with stronger competition, have to then grow stronger and then fight, and then maybe the battle is got multiple sides have casualties, and then that allows, similar to the mammals, there's no more large reptiles, so the mammals can take over. It's like, but I don't want these cheesy, like, I'm running scenes and there's like 5 people with machine guns pointed at you and no one can figure out how to trace your trajectory to at least hit you in a fatal spot. So yes, I'm proposing that it'd be a cool idea to somehow, or just have on the, there's a right black bar, there's a black bar on the right horizontal, there's a vertical bar, jeez, there's a vertical black bar on the right side of your monitor, and it shows like the rolling probabilities or something, and then it shows you rolling, and then it continues on because it shows you the outcome, like potential events that can occur at this moment. 0 0 this, 20 this, less than 5, less than 10, less than 15, less than 19, and and then you show the roll, and okay, now that's what the story is doing, kind of thing, and just make it grounded. That's all I want. Moving on. There's one more thing I want to do to make, like, for the Make It Better segment, but before we get there, last time I think I gave the example of like great advice that changes your life or something. I don't have a short advice story. As I get a sip of water, again, I don't know how these people talk for 3 hours without their voice just going hoarse. But I've done a little bit of traveling in my life, mostly solo traveling. And there was a moment, I don't know how old I was, maybe 27, when I went on a big trip. I went to Turkey, I went to Istanbul and Cappadocia, and that was great. Then I went to Jordan to see the Petra, and that was nice. There's quite a bit of hiking, so if it's hot, don't wear jeans. Jeez, I made the mistake of wearing jeans, a shirt, and then like an overshirt, like a light but like long sleeve shirt. I sweat so much, like I was soaked. And then I went to see the very farthest like part of the Petra, which is I think the treasury. That's like another like 3 miles or something. I don't know, 10, could have been 15. but you're at least going up in elevation for, at least 10,000 miles. It's just, you just keep, and it's just always like you can't ever see where this ends, and you never get updates. Hey, good job, 50% done, 75% done. So you just keep like thinking, oh, if I just climb to the top of where I can see there are people climbing, that's probably the end. And there must have been 15 of those moments, 20 maybe. So much so that you saw people like giving out donkey rides to the top. And you're like, I can manage. And then you get up another 20 feet's worth, or another 20 minutes worth of climbing on just straight stairs, and you're like, I think I can still get it. But at this point, the donkey ride has increased by like, I don't know, a couple dollars. And you're like, oh, well, that's a ripoff. I'm definitely not doing it now. And then you climb for another 20 minutes, and you're like, jeez, I'm gonna die. And then obviously water costs like 20 times more now as well. And you just keep going, and it's just like, how much farther can this be? And an hour later you're done, and it's like, I thought I was in good shape. Like, jeez. So yeah, be careful the first time you go. Make sure you. And then I went back, and I was wearing shorts, and it was like way better. But like, just yeah, don't wear jeans and a black shirt with then like a plaid overshirt, just so you can look good in pictures. Like, maybe just pack that on the side and put it on for your pictures, and take it off after. I don't know. So I did that, and then went to Egypt. And I started in the southern part of Egypt, which I believe they call Upper Egypt, and then I worked my way down to the northern part of Egypt. And started in Aswan, and then like saw the stuff there. Went to actually farther down Abu Sibyl, which is like the Ramsey type temple that you'll see in like the Death on the Nile type of stuff, and it's like the farthest one south, I think. And then I chartered a private taxi, which charter is probably the word. I just asked my hostel, and they found someone that was willing. And yeah, so I went up to Luxor, where I hit the temples along the way that were open. There were quite a few that were closed. I was a little bummed about, but made it to Luxor, went to the temples there, and then ended in Giza, Cairo, and then ended with like Saqqara and Giza. And I'm glad I did in that order. I'm glad I ended in Egypt. Glad I ended in Cairo, because, yeah, out of all the great stuff I did and all the great things I saw, you don't really get a sense of size and scale, because there's nothing around the pyramids. It's just desert, empty space. Well, when you take a picture then of the full pyramids, there's just nothing to compare it to in the horizon, and then like the comparison sides, and these bricks are they're like, if you're sitting in a bedroom, or you can think of a bedroom, you could probably only fit like 4 of the blocks they built the pyramid with in your entire bedroom, kind of thing. Like, just 8 to 10 feet long, 4 to 6 feet tall, like just huge bricks. And with that, then you're walking around the base. You have to arch your neck to be able to see up this thing. And and at least to me, this is where the great moment comes in. Is just with what you get taught in school. It's like, that this thing is ancient. The amount of man hours and man power that was used to create this thing, and here it is, 4,000 years later, however many years old it is, like, and it's like, this thing is gonna be here unless someone decides to like take it down or nuke it or something. Like, this thing is gonna be here for thousands of years, like in the future, like thousands of future, not thousands. I can't speak. Thousands of years to come. And you, at least to me at that point, I was in my late 20s, I think. It gave me at least the moment to say, wow, this is impressive, not only for the engineering of the time that they built it, but just the mark they made, the permanent mark they made on the earth. Again, unless someone consciously comes in and takes it down, this thing, and it will be preserved because it's just an achievement in itself. It's like its own trophy, right? Like it's its own award that then people want to immortalize. And so like the thought was, wow, what can I do in my life that would have any scope to do something like this? Like what do I esteem to do to make an impact on the world that would be anywhere close to being not my name like being immortalized, but like, the mark, the legacy, the invention that could help humanity, whatever it is, like what am I doing that's going to be a permanent boon to the rest of, and I mean, maybe the pyramids aren't a boon to people because, without them, we'd probably be the same, like it doesn't have any consequence on, so it's not like the cure to cancer, but that's what the scale of it feels like. It's like, what pyramid can I create, metaphorically, to, like, memorialize or to just pattern my life around, that other people would either travel thousands of years into the future to visit, thousands of miles from their current home to visit, that would appeal to millions and millions and millions of people, that would impact them, that would be, cherished, that would be just however you categorize it, like that would be worth something like this, something like a pyramid. And so, I didn't have anything at the time. I still don't know if I found, the moonshot that would be equivalent to like landing on Mars, or what something is attainable to me. And it doesn't have to be, again, it doesn't have to be like the same scale, so I don't have to make by myself like an equivalent sized pyramid in my industry, but just things to think about, to introspect and consider. And I mean, it definitely does, like, just in grandeur, kind of make your knees shake with how great it actually is when you're standing at the foot of it. To think that people would then climb it is like, maybe it's a little irreverent, but I mean, just like, it would probably be quite a bit of a climb because it's pretty big. But yeah, so that was the moment. It was just, that was what the takeaway was. It's just, maybe I need to start considering that as like, is that the aim of life kind of thing? If everyone esteemed to make a pyramid-sized impact, what would the world look like? Like, and hopefully it's not cutthroat and people can synergize and collaborate, but just, I don't think there are enough of those moments in normal people's lives to kind of ingrain that, and I don't think parents often try to ingrain that scope either. One moment. Okay. So, talking about what would the world look like with this concept of that's kind of that's your goal, that's your aspiration. And even like, how do you break that down? So for like parents, I feel like at some level you have to understand that, and even for yourself, kind of, you want the best for your children, but you don't want to be that parent that just is yelling and whipping their kids into like greatness, because that obviously doesn't always work. It's like, you want them to be passionate and you want to fuel their passions, back them, but you don't want to be pushing them, right? You don't want to be the person that is like, calm down, man, it's pee-wee football, like, does it matter if they're winning or losing? Like, some of these people don't even know how to, like, like, simple motor skills. Like, it just takes one genetic development earlier than everyone else for one person to dominate in the sport because everyone's like six. Like you don't want to be the guy that is embarrassing him or herself. Well, I guess I said guy, so himself. Just assume their pronouns, but you don't want to be the person that is like the accomplishment means more to you, I think is the best way to summarize it. If something means more to you than it does to like the person achieving it, then that's probably not the best support you can give, kind of thing. Where like if you're living and dying based on your child's test scores or college entry attendance or whatever, like, maybe you haven't found, or maybe you don't think that you're good enough to achieve those things, and that's why, I don't know. But I think, yeah, at some level, there's 7 billion people. Like, we all kind of think, like, oh, okay, I'm not going to be Elon Musk, and I never will be. So you kind of have to, like, set your expectations to reality, and then you're just hopeful that you can instill the wisdom that would make your child Elon Musk, if that was the goal, kind of thing. And so you're pushing them and offloading your entire life so that the kid can become what you didn't want them to be. But again, I don't know. So I don't want it to be like this violent, forceful philosophy of like, you have to change the world or nothing matters. Your life is nothing. But it's just, I feel like if it's something that you can at least esteem for, like if I can find something that helps tens, hundreds, thousands, millions of people, like, then yeah, I want to dedicate my life to that. And again, it doesn't have to be everyone has to solve the riddle of curing cancer, but just like in your own field, leave your mark. So find your pyramid, kind of thing. And so yeah, when I go through now much more as I'm getting old, because I'm old, annual goals and then my goal reflection and like goal review times, that's definitely a piece of like, am I doing anything that could create those the seeds of what could become this pyramid. And so in that sense, yeah, like it definitely mentally. And I hope that people are looking for either the moments that create those types of reflective experiences, or they're actually wise enough to just, without catalyst, have them to be seeking for and in inspiring others. Maybe you're only there to your pyramid is only to like what's that guy's name? David Goggins, Dave Robbins, whatever. Like you're inspiring people to be better. Maybe that's your pyramid. Whatever it is, but like just to be able to have that scope of, I'm gonna grind through right now so that I can see where this takes me. So yeah. All right. Before I get into the last segment of Make It Better, we saw a movie, The Heat, with Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock. And I don't want to bash those like feminine reboots or just like all those like forceful, like we need to make more movies with dumb men and like smart women protagonists. I don't even want to get into those. Like the money speaks for itself. Like they just don't seem to be working. They're not written, I guess, in a way that are good and appealing to either gender. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Ghostbusters, so that's why I didn't go see the Ghostbusters reboot. I haven't even seen the one with Paul Rudd. And I do like Paul Rudd, but he's not a reason I'm going to go see a movie. The Heat is the movie if you're trying to make one of those like full female driven movies. Like, and not that I don't even want to make a category of that, because it's like some people, it's like a that in itself is like the topic of like a triggering type of discussion. But it's just like, just make a good movie with good characters. And then, if the story calls for kind of like Everything Everywhere All at Once, the main two characters are women, mother and daughter, and it was amazing. The Heat, great. It was a good movie. It was funny. The dynamic was great. And yeah, so like, just make a good movie, and then figure out the genders of the roles or whatever after. You're just like, all of those female reboots or female first and put the man down, yeah, kind of movies. This is like at least the vibe I get from some movies. And I don't go see movies very often, but like, just mirror after this one, The Heat. It was just a good movie, a standalone good movie. And then guess what? I'm sure, given any of those terrible men that don't want to go see those other female movies, I bet they would agree with me, and they would enjoy this one and agree with me in saying, yeah, just make more movies like that. And again, going back to Everything Everywhere All at Once, just make good movies, right? New original stories with well-written plots and character development and moments, and people will go see it and enjoy it. Like, it's not like there. I don't know. Maybe the media is spinning it this way. I don't think it's real, but it's not like people are out against, like, I'm not going to see a movie with a female protagonist. What? What is this, like? Opposite day? Like, I feel like people, at least the masses, aren't like that. They just want to be entertained. They don't want to be belittled while they're watching it. They don't want to be attacked for anything. Like, they're paying you money. Why would they pay someone money to get slapped in the face? Like, don't make the movie then that way. Make it, like, I don't know, a news segment about that part, but just focus on the one job that the people are paying you for, entertainment, and make it more like The Heat. Make it more like Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, I don't know how to pronounce the last name of the lady and the protagonist of Everything Everywhere All at Once, but if she was in Top Gun, guess what? It would have probably still been good because she was a great actress and the story was great, right? Like, it's just, yeah, so that's all I'll say about that. It's like, just make a good movie. Okay. Make it better. We're already, like, well into this, but I mean, I guess it's been a few weeks. So I had, like, this week's topics and maybe last week's that I didn't publish because it wasn't quite as polished. I was bumbling through things. Making it better. I'm not saying Freaky Friday or White Chicks was bad. Like, but they're tropes that are hit on a lot that I think we can all, like, easily recognize. And I thought, if we were making a sequel to White Chicks, I figured out later we have to incorporate the Freaky Friday part too to make it work. But basically the idea was, you had, in the first movie, these black men that went through makeup to look nothing like the white women that they were impersonating. And the running gag, I guess, was that no one could tell. No one could tell the voice difference, the height difference, the body difference, the face difference. And so you just run with that again. You create the universe where there are people that have to impersonate other people that look nothing like them. And so, I don't know why I picked these, but the cops that were chosen to impersonate the White Chicks 2 version of these, white women models is a small Chinese woman on the police force, very small. One might even say a child, that's the running joke. It is a child. It's a Chinese woman, but it's a child. And a very large Japanese retired sumo wrestler. So you have a young Chinese girl and a middle-aged, gigantic Japanese man. But here's the kicker. And the editing has to play with this, but the large Japanese man is played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and the little Chinese girl is played by none other than Kevin Hart. And so there's two layers of hilarity that's going to run through the entire movie. One is that no one can figure out why this gigantic Japanese man is not this 120-pound model. And the running joke is, Jennifer, those pants make you look fat. Yeah, change your clothes. And it's like, and then, Jennifer, what did you eat? You're all puffy. Are you allergic to bees? And it's just one after another. Just the whole movie, people, strangers. Like, extras are gonna be introduced just to give one-liners. Oh my God, you shouldn't have eaten dinner last night. You're huge. But again, the running gag is no one in this reality can tell the difference, similar to White Chicks 1, between this Japanese man with limited. We're not going through 10 hours of makeup like the original guys in White Chicks did. It's minimal. Like, it's a wig in women's clothing. We're not putting these actors through all of this. Oh my God! Like, and can't you be more like Stephanie? Like, look at her. She looks great. Like, it looks like she's getting younger. Like, what is your regimen? And just like every time they go into a room, it's just like, did you get taller? Stephanie, did you get knee reduction surgery? Like, how are you so tiny? And just, yeah, and like, oh, and another part of the running gag is, guess what? The little Chinese guy, this is an international case. So like, they have these like high ups giving their like specialists that were working the case from their country point of origin. So you have this Chinese woman, doesn't speak any English. And then you have the Japanese man, doesn't speak any English. So they're speaking and no one can tell that they're not speaking English. So, Jennifer, what did you get? Are you allergic to bees? And then you got Japanese response. It's like, I'm hungry. Where's the food? And then it's like, whatever it sounds like, someone's gonna like just try to riff off of. Are you drunk? What are you saying? I can't understand. How much did you drink? And just the whole time. So there's that. But then, because they eventually get Freaky Friday'd with the actual The Rock and Kevin Hart, so that's why they're played by those actors, you'll have the cutaway moments where The Rock and Kevin Hart are just in those clothes, but as like themselves, because like that's the mental projection. But they can speak to each other because like they both, originally spoke English, so they can communicate with each other, just riffing like, hey Kevin, what's going on? Why do you look like a little girl? Man, why you calling me a little girl? Like, man, you look fat, man. You need to hit the gym. And like just back and forth at each other. So they're speaking Chinese and Japanese in real life, and people are watching them, and it's like, what are you guys on? I can't understand anything you're saying. I'm gonna go talk to these girls over here, kind of thing. And then so like there's that layer, and then the full thing comes full circle because eventually. And you see this as like a character, like, because like I just said, I can't understand a thing you're saying. Eventually, that undercover police officer or model is slowly going to learn Japanese and fall in love with the original guy that switched bodies with The Rock. And by the end, they're going to be able to coordinate and take down the actual killer or criminal or whatever, and they'll fall in love, and that's their story arc. And then probably something similar with Kevin Hart's character, but like it all plays a part. Like that, she slowly by osmosis, quote unquote, just learning Japanese through just trying to understand what, Jennifer is saying. And again, finally, at the very end, there will be like a moment when they switch bodies back and they reveal, like, take the wig off. And it's like, I am not Jennifer. Oh, I'm not whatever the other girl's name was, Stacy or something. And we were undercover and we were trying to, take down whatever criminal. Hope you can't hear my stomach because I'm so hungry right now. So hungry. Oh my God. What was the end? The very final gag is like they bring back the original models and they're like safe, and it's like the one time, and come to find out, like one of them got stung by a bee, puffed up, and it was like all puffy. This is the actual makeup for the actual model, and she was puffy. And it's like no one says anything about like, what is you? Hey, are you having a lot of reaction? Nothing. Like there's just no. This is like the last time to have the running joke about, you look different, you look bad, you look good, whatever it is. They come in. Obviously, Jennifer doesn't look right, and then it just silence for like 10 seconds. I'm talking prolonged. Like, is no one gonna say the last line of this running gag? And then the movie ends. Thank you very much. I know. Yes. Yeah. These things just write themselves. Like. So yeah. That is my what make it better segment for this week, this podcast. I don't think I have anything else. Let me just check the agenda really quickly, because I am very hungry. Got a little Tina Belcher coming in. Great show also. Bob's Burgers, love that show. No, I think that's about it. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you enjoyed. Do all the things you know to do and some of the things you don't know how to do, because that might make you grow as a person. Hit all the buttons below if you have any. I don't have any buttons on me, but, I hear them, people say that a lot. And, I also hear don't push other people's buttons. So, whatever that means, take it or leave it. But make sure you subscribe to a certain philosophy in life and live it to its fullest. And if you could just do me one solid favor and donate blood. You always got to donate blood because they always need that, especially if you have a rare blood type. And if you could give me money, I would appreciate that too. Have a nice day.